Welcome back. We're going to take a little bit of a turn. We're still talking about a type of polynomial, but in the last videos we were talking about linear. Now we're going to talk about quadratic. So linear was algebra 1. Quadratic started in algebra 1, but really drove home in algebra 2. So a big difference with pre-calc is, yes, we're doing the same topics, but we're going at a much faster, like, hey, do you remember this? You need to know these things. So we're going to do more with them. So remember that a quadratic function is when we have a degree of 2. So if you need to put in parentheses there as good note taking, that's x squared. And the shape of the graph is called, hopefully you're already thinking it in your head, parabola. Okay, so standard form of a quadratic is y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. Note that a cannot equal 0 because then it's no longer quadratic. The vertex form is y equals a times x minus h squared plus k. And make a little note here, h comma k is the vertex. And if you're going, I've heard that word, I forgot what that meant. Remember a parabola shaped like this? The vertex is just the valley, or if it's flipped the other way, it's the top. So it's the point where it goes from decreasing to increasing. So it's a max or a min. All right. So I guess I didn't really need to write that on that line because we write it here. HK is the vertex. If we are in standard form, we do negative b over 2a for the x value. And then we plug that number in. So the way we write that is saying f of negative b over 2a for the y value. Okay, so maybe on this one we say that's the vertex form. And then for standard form, it's negative b over 2a and then f of negative b over 2a. The axis of symmetry is always a vertical line, so we have to put x equals. And it's always whatever the x value of the vertex is. So that could be either h or negative b over 2a, depending on which formula you're looking at. Remember, in order for it to open upwards, so what we mean is open like this, a has to be greater than 0. So it has to be positive. And in order for it to open down, a has to be less than 0, aka negative. Okay. The y-intercept is when x is 0, so that's always f of 0, and that's always going to be c. Okay, and that's coming from standard form. So think about standard form. If I plugged in 0 for x, I would get a times 0 squared plus b times 0 plus c. Well, that's just going to leave me with c. I could also write that as the point 0 comma c. All right, and then the x-intercepts, you guys will be so excited. That's when y is 0, so we write it like this. And the way that always works, this is why you're excited, is the quadratic formula. So we get to sing the song. X equals negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Okay, that's how we find x-intercepts. If it is possible, we can factor, but it's not always possible to do that. Okay, so even if we could factor, we can also do quadratic formula. So good to know that quadratic formula. All right, and one more thing I'm going to do before I end this video to give yourself a little break is we have talked about this before, but I'm going to say it again. Remember that x plus a quantity squared is not, so this is what you're not writing, okay? It is not x squared plus a squared, okay? And the reason for that, so I'm going to go over here on the side and show you the reason for that, is because it's actually x plus a. Sorry, my pen will fix itself in a minute, I hope. X plus a times x plus a. Okay? And in which case you need to either do box method, if that's your method of choice, or you need to FOIL distribute, whatever it is that you know. So x times x is x squared, x times a is ax, a times a is ax, and then a times a, that shouldn't be a comma, sorry, is a squared. And so then I would have x squared plus 2ax plus a squared. So the part you're missing there is that middle part, and it's always just double multiplying these two together. So if I multiply those two together and double it, that gives me my middle term. The same is true for subtraction. If you don't believe me, do the same thing that we did over here on the right. And it becomes this. So that negative squared still makes the end positive, but the middle doubled now becomes negative. So that's something worth memorizing if you can. If you can't, you just have to do the extra work here on the right to do that. So we'll pick back up in the next video about completing the square.